is there anything like a specialization when it comes to recruitment? Like, are there different types of recruiters?
Yeah, for sure. There's general ones, there's technical recruiters. Technical recruiters typically will have a little bit more in-depth technical knowledge so that, they can interview more technical people like developers or engineers and stuff like that, right? And there's also, like, depending on the industry, you can specialize in those industries. For example, if you, let's say, work in the mining industry, there's a lot of different type of jobs within the mining industry that maybe other recruiters from different industries don't even know about, right?
Right.
I mean, I've never worked in mining, so I have no idea what kind of engineers and whatnot that they would hire. I've only been working typically in the more tech-based type of jobs, right? A variety, but still within the technology space. I have no idea what mining people do. So you can specialize in that sense, right? You can specialize in different industries. For example, as well, if let's say you're a finance recruiter, you could probably specialize in the financial industry or the banking industry, and those people have different requirements and different type of jobs and lingo, right? A different type of language as well that they speak. So yeah, for sure, you can definitely specialize in different things. Like I specialize in technical recruitment right now.
Do you think it's important, since you talked about mining and that maybe you would not be a good fit for recruiting miners? do you think it's important for a recruiter to know something about the role that you're hiring for? Or is the process of recruiting, let's say, more general?
Oh, 100%. You need to understand what the job that you're looking for is, because otherwise how are you supposed to find people, right? So typically the part of the recruitment process in every company really, when a job opens up, for example, right, from the hiring managers or from whatever team that's looking for people, the first job as a recruiter is that you would go do what we call an intake call. It's basically like a short introductory or interview call with the hiring manager, and as a recruiter you would basically ask a bunch of questions to the hiring manager, like, what are you looking for, what does your team need, right? What are some of the hard skills that you need in this new person, like what are some of the soft skills that this person may need. So we based on those the criteria that's given to us, and then that's how we would start recruiting, right? So yeah, 100% you need to understand the job. Typically, we would also ask questions like, what does the day-to-day look like for this position, right? What are they going to be doing every day? Who are they going to be working with every day? What kind of tools or softwares or whatever that they're going to need to know. So 100%. And also, like, if you work in a large company as a recruiter, you're not going to be working on one job. You're going to have like so many different jobs. Sometimes typically maybe 25 to 30 openings that you're deal with at the same time. Even if you work in a small company, and if you're alone, let's say you're the only recruiter in terms of like HR group as general, right? You can be dealing with 25, 30 recs, like requisitions, open positions basically. So that's pretty normal, right? That's busy. If you have like 10 openings, that's like a little quiet, right? But if you get to the point where you're like 15, that's like a good number of openings to work on it per person. 25 to 30 is a lot, but it's very common nowadays in larger companies. So like you're gonna have to know each one of those positions that are open, and you have to understand what the requirements are, because also when you're interviewing people, you will know exactly like where people can go, because sometimes people apply for one thing, but they can actually fit for another job, right? So if you're as a recruiter, if you don't know your jobs like that you're working on, you're going to be missing out on people, right? Because then you're going to be only focusing on like one, or if you don't know half of your jobs, you're going to miss out on some people that may fit those jobs when they apply for something else. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like matchmaking and puzzle pieces, like you're moving people around, right? So if you're a good recruiter and you understand the jobs that you're hiring for, you can literally be interviewing one person for like 5 different jobs. Does that make sense? When you're asking questions, you can also ask like, oh, have you done this? Have you done that? Sounds like you're kind of into this more than this one. So, would you be interested in this role instead? So it's like, kind of matchmaking for sure.
I'm going to put that as the podcast title, the matchmaker of
we're
jobs.
We're like professional matchmakers.
Right. But explain to me, what is the depth of how well you need to know the role? To give you an example, so let's say you're focusing on the tech industry. Let's say you have this call with your hiring manager and he tells you some some crazy new programming language or some tools that you have never heard of. How do you follow up? Like, do you do a research on your own, or do you just try to see if the applicants mention something like this, or you just ask them, hey, by the way, do you know this thing? MySQL.
Yeah. So a combination of both. And it also depends on the recruiter, right? Some recruiters don't care for understanding the technical aspect as long as they know the generalization of what this candidate needs to do on the day-to-day basis and what kind of tools they need. Some recruiters are happy just knowing it's like, okay, well, SQL, sure, why not? I don't really know what that is, but as long as they have that, then they can pass the resume screening and they'll call them up and interview them, right? But again, like, we're not technical people, we're not the developers here, right? But for me personally, like, and this is what makes me like good and efficient at my job, is because I take the extra time and the extra mileage of actually trying to understand what these tools are, even just general basis, right? I'd Google them. If there's like a new tool or new software that they need to understand, I'm like, I don't know what this is. So I'm just gonna Google it and see the first information that I see is like, oh, okay, this is for this. It's like, okay, MySQL is a database, language. Right. So at least I know. When I'm talking to people, I don't sound like completely clueless,
Right.
So, but that's my preference. I don't want to sound clueless, so I take the extra mile. Right. Some recruiters don't care. And they have a checklist. It's like, okay, you got this, check, and and that's fine too.
Yeah, you were saying that the technical, sometimes that there's like, in some cases, that technical people working the role. Example of this engineer, we continue, right? If one day this person decided to transition to a recruiter, is there this type of situation? Then they kind of just specialize in finding this role?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because I have come across people who went to school in computer science, for example.
Right.
Ended up being a recruiter. Actually, we interviewed this person not too long ago for my current team. And it was interesting because she had a computer science background. She did some, kind of technical work before. She was a developer at some point as well. But she found out that she didn't like that career path. And then she changed into recruitment. So she became a technical recruiter. And that definitely helps. I mean, it could happen, right?
Right. Because then they will be more, they'll understand more about the roles and stuff.